So I know that you've worked for the Elmer Iseler Singers.
Yeah.
So for those who live in Australia and may not be familiar with that organisation, can you tell us a little bit about the Elmer Iseler
Yeah.
Singers?
I believe the Elmer Iseler Singers started as the Festival Singers of Canada. I think that was 1954.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the first professional choir in Canada. And they became very, very well known. If you listen to the Robert Kraft produced recordings of Igor Stravinsky, they are the choir
Right.
that Stravinsky preferred to work with. So if you listen to his
Wow.
Symphony of Psalms, they're the choir on the Symphony of Psalms. It's, yeah,
Oh, I
I
need to
know,
listen
it's
to
like
that now.
mind blowing. And so it's interesting, and I really, it really saddens me to see what's happening, like with the ABC and other broadcasters, because for somebody like me coming from a very small city, um, I would listen to the CBC. I grew up listening to the Elmer Iseler Singers.
Mm.
Back in the days when cassette tapes, when you'd wait and you'd wait to press record, and I had a recording of them singing the Messiah that I
Wow.
probably broke the cassette because I just played it over and over and over and over. And so there wasn't a time that I didn't know about the Iseler Singers because they were always on the radio.
Mm.
And then fast forward to when I was in the National Youth Choir, as I mentioned before, Elmer Iseler was the conductor of that choir. And I think it was in my second year, a singer was ill.
Mm.
And so they asked if I would fill in. And it just so happened it was a tour of my area where I grew up.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
part of it was singing in my hometown with the Iseler Singers, which was pretty cool. Um, Sadly, that singer was very, very ill, and had to resign, and they had asked me to take his position. But at the time, I thought, oh, if I don't finish my university degree, because they were so busy, they rehearsed every day, they traveled, singing with the symphony, singing with the Mendelssohn Choir, that I would have had to have left university, and
Wow.
I know my parents would have killed me, you know. But eventually, I did get to go back and sub in. I was a substitute singer when they were on tours, and that's how I met my wife. So.
Lovely. And your wife and yourself, how did you come to Australia?
Well, I think it was my wife had actually gone over to Toronto, and that's a whole other interview.
Yeah.
But the short story is that she was the first assistant conductor that Jean Ashworth Bartle ever had with the Toronto Children's Choir, and she said, "Well, I can't give you a full position, but my colleague Lydia Adams at the time, conductor of the Elmer Iseler Singers. Elmer had passed away, and Lydia was his long-term accompanist. She needs an accompanist. So between that could be a full job. So the first day, we were getting ready for a tour, and I had just arrived back from Scotland, and Ed. Anyway, my wife doesn't remember because she said I was so terrified. But Lydia said, "Oh, and by the way, we have a new Australian accompanist." Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So we went on a 2-month tour of the States,
Yeah.
and we like to say that if you spend 2 months on a tour bus with anybody, and you could still be friends, then there's a lot in that.
Mm.
And anyway, eventually we got married, and a few years later we had our first child, and then the homing beacon went off.
Right.
All my family was on the East Coast, and Australia just seemed like a great adventure. I love traveling, so when my wife suggested we move back to her hometown of Melbourne,
Yep.
yeah, it seemed like the right thing to do.
Was it at that time that you started to work for the Melbourne University?
Well, first I started working with I started off doing my master's to convert it into a doctorate at the
Mm-hmm.
University of Melbourne, and then I just sort of didn't feel that was the right fit. So I wasn't a permanent resident at the time, so I was sort of the stay-at-home dad at the time.
Yeah.
But I had done some lessons with the head of voice at the Victorian College of the Arts. And by the end of that first year, she said, "Well, because you have a master's degree, you're allowed to adjudicate the undergraduate recitals." So I did that, and she liked that. And she said, "Oh, and you know, your French is great." She said, "I need a French teacher next year, and we'll give you some students as well." And I was terrified. I thought, "Oh no, what do we do?" But no, it was like a duck to water. So that was kind of how it started. And then from there, other positions, so Monash University, and then the Melba Conservatorium, which was then, it was sort of its own entity, but nominally under the umbrella of Victoria University. And I started teaching at those places, plus at secondary schools as well.
You've spoken a lot about your love of teaching. Can you describe your style?
Well, I sometimes nutty professor, I think maybe is a good way to describe it sometimes. No, I just, you know, I'm very passionate. I think because I had really great teachers, not just in music, but throughout, you know, secondary school, for example, had some wonderful teachers. And it's just that thing that you're passionate about, to help somebody else become passionate about it, is a real thrill. A lot of teachers talk about witnessing the aha moments, you know, and it's true. It's a real gift to, you know, be working on something with a student or with a choir, and students meaning children or even adults, you know, and just the idea clicks. Something happens and we get it. It was Jean Ashworth Bartle once, back in the days, we call it BC, before children, when my wife and I were flexible, and we go, "Oh, I'm at the opera company tonight. Oh, I'm doing a concert around the corner. Oh, I'll come up and turn your pages or something." And Jean was doing a secondary, a schools sort of thing where different schools would sing, and she'd work with them. And I remember distinctly, she said something, and they didn't get it. So she said it again in a different way. They didn't get it. Maybe went on third time, fourth time. Anyway, they got it. She was using a microphone. She leaned over and she said, "If they don't get it, then it's our fault, not theirs."
Yeah.
So being able to explain things in multiple ways, you know, and to help them to get through, to find this wonderful discovery, which is the thing that music is. It's such a wonderful discovery, and to be able to ignite that, as was ignited for me. In a way, it's kind of that idea of paying it forward, you know, because I benefited from such great people. I have a responsibility now to the next generation. And that's the wonderful thing about music, is that a teacher can trace their lineage back to, you know, so-and-so to so-and-so to so-and-so to Liszt or something like that, you know?
It's very true.
Yeah. So you're always passing along to the next generation.